The Arab Spring was a revolutionary wave of protests and uprisings that swept through the Middle East and North Africa region in the early 2010s. The movement began in December 2010 with the self-immolation of a Tunisian street vendor, Mohamed Bouazizi, in protest of police harassment and corruption. This act of desperation sparked a chain reaction of protests and demonstrations across Tunisia and ultimately catalyzed the overthrow of President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali. The Arab Spring soon spread across the region, igniting popular uprisings in Egypt, Libya, Yemen, Syria, and Bahrain. The movement was driven by a shared desire for political and economic reform, human rights, and democracy, and was fueled by growing frustration with the authoritarian regimes, corruption, and inequality that plagued the region. In Egypt, the protests began in January 2011, with thousands of people taking to the streets to demand the end of President Hosni Mubarak's 30-year reign. The demonstrations were marked by violent clashes between protesters and security forces, and by February of that year, the Egyptian military had taken control of the government, with Mubarak stepping down from power. However, democratic processes were slow to take shape, and in 2013, the military, led by General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, seized power in a coup, effectively reversing the progress made by the Arab Spring movement. In Libya, the movement was characterized by a civil war that erupted in February 2011, with the opposition forces, backed by international support, eventually capturing and executing longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi. However, the country has since been plagued by instability as rival factions and militant groups vie for power and resources, leading to a protracted and brutal conflict that has devastated the country. In Yemen, the Arab Spring movement was marked by a series of protests and demonstrations against President Ali Abdullah Saleh, who had ruled the country for over 3 decades. In 2011, Saleh was forced to resign in a power transition deal brokered by Gulf countries, but the country has since descended into chaos, with armed groups and extremist elements vying for control. In Syria, the Arab Spring movement quickly transformed into brutal civil war, with government forces, backed by Russia and Iran, clashing with various opposition groups, including Islamist militants and Kurdish factions. The conflict, which has been ongoing since 2011, has resulted in the displacement of millions of people and the loss of hundreds of thousands of lives. Despite the challenges and setbacks, the Arab Spring movement represented a historic moment of change and hope for the region. It was a manifestation of the people's desire for freedom, equality, and democracy, and showed the world the power of ordinary citizens to effect change. The movement challenged the status quo and sparked debates about the future of the region, and its legacy will continue to shape the political and social landscape of the Middle East and North Africa region for years to come.